What's going on, guys? Your boy Amazing here, back with another video, and in today's video, guys, I want to explain how I go about building my characters in Genshin Impact. So I know a lot of you guys might be wondering, what my CV is, what my, overall stats are on my characters. And so what I wanted to do here in today's video, guys, is go over how I kind of build my characters, and we'll talk about some of my, really good built characters versus my, built enough characters to get the job done. So if you guys enjoy videos like this, man, definitely make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, as we're on the road to that 1K subscribers. And guys, we are doing a 5x Vulcan Moon giveaway at 1,000 subs, so make sure to hit that sub button so you have the chance to be entered into the giveaway. And with that out of the way, man, that's gonna be it, and let's hop into the video. Alright, guys, so what I want to do here, first things first, is go over a few of my characters here that have, I would say, in my opinion, good enough builds to get the job done. And then we'll go over some of my characters that have insanely good builds. So starting off with my Noelle, I actually think my Noelle is one of my most copium characters in terms of how I built him. But I think in terms of the, his performance on the actual game, he still performs as, you would expect for a Noelle. So in terms of my pieces, I mean, this piece is good right here. It has a fly attack, and it went in one roll on that. It went 2 rolls into the critical damage, 1 roll in crit rate, and then flat just attack percent base. On my feather right here, I got about, 2 rolls in crit rate, 1 roll in crit damage, 1 roll in HP, 1 roll in defense. That's alright, nothing super crazy with that. And then my sands here, I got about maybe 2 or 3 rolls into that, right, if I'm not mistaken. So that's all right. I mean, a good enough amount of crit rate right there. And then on the goblet, this is definitely a really good goblet, guys. It's one of my better goblets. And then for my circlet, I got 1 roll in crit rate. So overall, guys, this is kind of how I go about building my characters. As long as they are strong enough to be able to do content in the game, then I'm fine with just this standard build of my Noelle right here, where I think that he can still get the job done. And even though his ratio doesn't seem to be that crazy, I mean, because I do have the weapon, obviously it's gonna look a little, kind of stacked here. Let's just put on a weapon that doesn't have a critical damage stat stick. This is what my ratio is looking like on March as a hunter, which, if you really look at this, is not a crazy ratio. But because Nouvelle's such a strong character, it doesn't, it really doesn't matter, guys. My Noelle here, even with this ratio, I mean, what is that, 7,200? That's still really good, right? Around that, what is that, 68, 70, right? So yeah, no, that's kind of how I go about building a character like Noelle, let's say, right? I just get him, his artifacts, and then once he's good to go, he's good to go, and I don't really need to touch his artifacts. Sure, I could definitely upgrade this character. We could get him maybe a little bit higher crit rate, a little bit higher crit damage, and that's for sure something that I could do. But as long as Noelle gets the job done for my account, I don't, personally continue to build the character. Now, moving on to a support type character like Kazuha, guys, I made sure that I had that 1,000 EM amount. I make sure to hit that perfect amount of stat that you need to get the full amount of buff. Same goes with Xiao. In this scenario, I do have 3,125 defense, but because I'm running peak patrol song and I hit them the first few hits, I actually do gain above the 3,200 amount. So for characters that require a certain amount of a stat, I do make sure to get that amount of stat. That is very, very important. And then obviously following the 4-set guideline of what the character needs. So Viridescent Venerer for Kazuha, and then Xiao with the scroll set. You always have to make sure that you go with the best artifact set for that character. And I think depending on the character, guys, artifact set does matter more than the rolls on the artifacts, because I know a lot of people might be like, oh, amazing, what if you just have crazy artifacts that just are split between a bunch of different sets, but they have really crazy CV? Then that could be good. But for a support type character like Xiao, her artifact set bonus itself is more valuable than the rolls on the artifacts itself. You want to get that 40% elemental damage bonus regardless of the main stats on these pieces. That would still be better for you than necessarily running a bunch of other pieces for support, right? So that's what I would say, generally speaking, is you want to go for the artifact set bonus, especially on supports. If we're talking about DPS characters, then sure, you could go with something different, but for supports, guys, 100% you do want to make sure you have the artifact set bonus. Now, moving on to another fairly well-built character, I would say, guys, is my Xiao. I wouldn't say he's anything super insane, but I'm at 79.7, 197.7, and if we go to his weapons here, I'm on Jade Spear, and then for his artifacts, I'm on Vermilion. So yeah, this is a really good artifact right here. I think that's about 4 or 5 rolls in crit damage, 1 roll in HP, right? So that's pretty good. This one right here is 2 rolls in crit damage and then a bunch of attack percent right there. It's all right. This one is actually like pretty good. 12% crit rate, 13% crit damage, so about 4 rolls in crit rate. 1 roll in crit damage right there. And then yeah, this is my really good Anemo Goblet. I do have another Anemo Goblet as well. I think that's on my Xiao though. Where is I think it's, yeah, this, oh no, it's not even on my Xiao, it's this one right here. This one's pretty good, but this one has ER, has some HP as well, so it's still a little bit better in my opinion. And then for my crit damage circlet here, guys, I have a crit rate substat with 10%. So definitely a solid build on Xiao. Again, like this is not like one of my like super mega CV builds, but still it gets the job done. Like I'm trying to build characters, guys, to the point to where they get the job done and they're really good to go. And another thing I guess I didn't really mention with Noelle, because Nouvelle's kind of a different character, right? You have like different stats with him because you're running Martius, a hunter, whereas like a character with Xiao, this is what his crit rate, crit damage is going to look like throughout the entire fight. So I like to go for really high crit rate, guys, on characters that are hitting multiple times in a row, that have really good multiple hits. So characters like Noelle probably wants a really high amount of crit rate. I only have him at about 70, but my Xiao is at 79. What's another good character that I have really high crit rate on? Raiden. I mean, my Raiden's at 80. We'll talk about Raiden when we get to her, guys. But pretty much every character that hits multiple times, that are in a consecutive amount of times too, you want to make sure that you go really high crit rate. Now, an example of the other way, on the opposite spectrum, is like, okay, what about a character like Eula, where she hits kind of that one big hit, and yeah, she does have some other big hits too. Then you can go with a more less crit rate but higher crit damage build, in my opinion. It depends though. It depends if you want to do multiple runs on an Abyss, because with a lower crit rate build overall, you might have to reset till you get that one run where you do get that mega crit. So this is just an example here, and Eula does have crowd resonance and other ways of increasing her crit rate as well, guys. So don't think that I just always go in with 56.7% crit rate on Eula. I try to run like either another crowd unit or maybe Rosaria specifically to get that extra crit rate for her. So even though it looks a little bit low, it's usually around that like 70% range. So yeah, that's what I usually like to go with in general. Yeah, moving on, guys, to a character like Albedo here, where he does not have a weapon that's gonna be a like signature 5-star with like a crit rate or crit damage stat, and Albedo also doesn't have an ascension stat for crit rate or crit damage either. And so the way you want to build a character that's a sub DPS, you want to go to a 1-to-2 ratio in terms of the crit rate, crit damage, guys. So if I have 60% crit rate, I want to have 120 crit damage. Around that like a range is gonna be the way to go for gaining a good amount of damage overall. So the higher the crit rate, that means you want to kind of level out the amount of crit damage that you're getting with that crit rate. So my Albedo here is fairly well built. I would say my artifacts for him, I would say overall are pretty good. Like a lot of defense on his artifacts, so that's obviously helping him out. Like this one's my really good sands. This one has a lot of crit rate, crit damage. This one has a lot of defense. Like we make sure that we obviously want to go with the way the character scales too. So because Albedo is scaling through defense, you obviously want to go with a more defense rolls. If a character scales through attack, you obviously want to go for more attack rolls. And with Albedo here, I made sure to get him around that 1-to-2 ratio. I'm a little bit higher on the crit damage side of things, but still 6130 133 is kind of like a good gauge here for a character that I would go 1-to-2 ratio, regardless of their ascension stat or their crit rate, crit damage weapon. Alright, guys, now moving on to my most well-built character on my account, in my opinion, guys. I mean, it's on Akasha, it even shows it. My Raiden Shogun, guys. My Raiden Shogun is 152, 152.6 at 258.9% energy recharge. I'm on engulfing, so no stat stick weapon or anything like that, no stats being increased on that. And then if we go to my artifacts here, I mean, this is, I think, my best artifact on my account. It's like a 49 point something CV. So this is absolutely insane. This piece is really good too. 1 roll in crit rate. I think that's like maybe 4 or 5 rolls in crit damage, right? Yeah, I think so. So that's obviously a really good piece as well. This ER Sands actually did get with the artifact transmuter. So, you definitely can get some value out of that. And for characters that you do want to have highly built, you could definitely go with that setup. So So, you know, really good crit damage on that energy recharge sands right there. And then for my Electro Goblet, this was a on-set goblet, guys. I mean, I'm not replacing this, right? Like, this is absolutely insane. And then the crit rate circulate here for Raiden. So again, for a character like Raiden, again, I mean, that's my channel name, guys. Raiden Amazing. So the reason why you know, this is one of my best build characters, because we're always going for the stats that she needs. So ER is obviously going to be very important for Raiden, because the higher your ER, the more she's converting that into electro damage bonus. So having an ER stance is really good. Now looking at my flower here, or feather, we're going for as high CV as possible, because Raiden really does want that high crit rate, high crit damage. Right, so 13.6 crit rate, 22.5 crit damage. That is something that this Raiden will definitely benefit from. Like, sure, I could run maybe a little bit less crit rate. Like, I think I have another artifact here. Like, let's say this artifact right here. This is actually a really good one as well. Let's say I run a little bit less crit rate right there, guys. 72, 158. I mean, that is still really good, right? Like, just gaining like a really good amount of stats overall. Like, this is a 1-to-2 ratio as well, because we're at about 70, 150, right? 75, 150, close to that. So, you know, you're still in a really good spot if you're running a setup like that. But I like to go on Raiden again, as I mentioned, like a character that's doing a bunch of normal attacks. You know, in her burst, she's doing a bunch of hits. You want to have as much crit rate as possible, because you want to crit every single hit, right? That's the very important thing about Raiden. And then, yeah, my ER, obviously, again, as I mentioned, really good for, you know, converting the elemental damage buff, right? And then crit rate, crit damage, again, guys, is going to be the main most important thing for Raiden first hand. And then you want to go for like attack percent, ER, elemental mastery for like an overload team, etc. So that's what you can see. A lot of this is just kind of CV. This is like my highest CV character, guys. Like, regardless of other stats, this is my highest CV character. But you know, for characters like Raiden, she definitely wants to have really high CV. But a character like, you know, maybe even like Noelle, you could really get away with low CV, because this character is just absurdly broken anyway. And, you know, in terms of like the main stats as well, guys, I like to go with, you guys see a trend here with a lot of my characters is I go, you know, so crit rate, crit damage is going to be the main stats I'm looking for substat wise. If we go to my sands, it's going to be either attack percent or ER, depending on the character. So if it's a more DPS character that doesn't scale through energy recharge, and we go with attack percent, Raiden is a different example here, where she's ER scaling. So, you know, ER obviously giving her more elemental damage buff. So yeah, I would say it really depends on the character overall, guys. You obviously have to search up a build for the character, know how to build them, but generally speaking, it's a damage percent goblet, right? So you obviously want to go for electro damage for Raiden, you want to go for hydro damage for Noelle, pyro damage for Arlecchino, stuff like that. And then your circlet here is going to be either crit rate, crit damage for the most part, trying to get that 1-to-2 ratio that you're looking for. And then your sands is just going to be either attack percent if you're an attack scaler. If you're an HP scaler, you go HP percent. If you're a energy recharge scaler, you go energy recharge. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of your sands, guys. But generally speaking, that's how I like to build a lot of my characters. And then for obviously the flower and the feather, you want to just go for a bunch of really good stats. So crit rate, crit damage, you know, energy recharge, elemental mastery, attack percent if that's what the character scales off of, HP percent if that's what this character scales off of, defense percent, right? Depending on what the character's scaling off of, that could really mean a lot for how you build, you know, or how you like determine how good a piece is. Because, you know, there'd be a piece like this, guys. Like, this is really good. You know, 8.7% HP, 22% ER. That's obviously very good on an emblem set where you're converting energy recharge into your elemental burst damage, right? You got you know, one roll in crit rate, one roll, or no, base crit rate, and then one roll in crit damage. This is a really good artifact on my, you know, my Yelan, right? Because Yelan is HP scaling. She is a character that runs emblem, so me running that on my Yelan could be really good. I do have this piece right now, which is better because it has higher CV. It has the exact same stats. So, you know, you could still run this piece on my Yelan, and it would actually benefit her a lot because, you know, we're getting more HP, we're getting more ER, obviously helping out towards your damage. But it's in a scenario like this, guys, where you have the exact same stats but just better crit rate, crit damage, you gotta lean towards more of the crit rate, crit damage, in my opinion. So yeah, guys, again, not everything comes down to crit damage. Like, don't be sad if your characters aren't built, you know, well in crit damage. Like, here's a good example of a character that I literally built and then just left. Like, my Scaramouche here, 67, 186, not really a great ratio. Even if I take off his weapon here, you'll see that it literally is, I think, just 1-to-2 ratio, guys. It is 1-to-2, around that, yeah, so about 71-40, right? So it's 1-to-2, but Scaramouche, in terms of how I built him, it just wasn't really good in terms of the rolls. This is a off piece, so, you know, as high crit damage as I could get on the off piece. This is a really good onset goblet, though, I gotta give that. But my Sands, it's alright. My feather was only critical damage, and then all that defense for copium, man. And then my flower was only 1 roll in crit damage. So you can see that even though I have some, you know, copium pieces, and, you know, still that I could definitely upgrade the pieces, guys. If my character is good enough to go, then I just kind of rock them the way they are, and I don't really, you know, chase pretty like, I don't really chase like higher like rolls on a character unless they're like my mains. Now my mains on my account, you guys know, are Raiden, but I also have another main which is Noelle, and my Noelle actually has very, very high crit damage as well, for as much as I could get for her. So I'm at 73, 219 right now, Noelle on a Red Horn Stone Thresher. So without Red Horn, I think it's actually a 1-to-2 ratio as well. So if we go to this right here, we are, yeah, almost about 1-to-2. So 73, 130, a little bit higher crit rate than the 1-to-2, but still gonna be really good on a Red Horn setup. And in terms of my artifacts here, guys, on her, she is getting my best husk pieces while having, you know, my second highest CV off piece as well, being this little feather right here. 14.4% crit rate, 20.2% crit damage, and it has double defense, guys. Like, this is made for my Noelle, right? We're following all the things that she scales off of. So she scales off defense. We know crit damage is very, very important, so I go crit damage, and we have those pieces for my Noelle. And then for a piece like this one just has enough crit damage to warrant running it. A really good amount of crit rate as well. And then we go to my Sands here, where, you know, we only really had like, well, like 2 to 3 rolls in crit damage, no rolls in crit rate, and then all the other rolls went into the flat stats. But this is still better than all my other options here, guys, so we still gotta run it. And then for my goblet here is a onset with double crit damage. And compared to my other pieces, this one still has the higher CV overall. But I could, you know, in a scenario like this, I could run like this one right here for my Albedo, and I get a little bit more crit rate. I'll be at 77,206, which is very, very good too, but I would lose out a little bit on the crit damage. And if I was running like a white blind or something like that, like if I was running, yeah, if I like switch over to white blind here, the crit damage is super low to the point where I would rather have, you know, that 130 crit damage, 70% crit rate than a 77, 118, right? It's gonna average out that when you get to that like 1-to-2 ratio overall, guys, that's when you're really gonna benefit. But when you have a weapon like Red Horn that's gonna suffice and give you all that crit damage anyway, then this would be a fine build to go with as well. So you just gotta kind of like gauge how well, you know, your build's gonna be with either the crit rate, crit damage weapon you have, or if a character has an ascension stat as well that could benefit. And in this piece right here, guys, you know, as much good stats as I could get, it's not Noelle's best piece at all. You know, 1 roll in crit damage and that's it, and then everything else is just kind of flat attack and attack percent. This is still good for her though, because she does scale through attack after her defense scaling. It's defense scaling first and then into attack, right? So that's kind of how she works. But overall, guys, this is one of my highly built characters as well. I've been trying to improve her, but the hostile main is not treating me well. But yeah, guys, that is pretty much the TLDR of how I like to build my characters. So I either build them to be good enough, like my my Nouvellette, my Wanderer, my Xiao. I feel like they're built enough to the point where I can use them, but they're not like, you know, overly high ranked in Akasha or anything like that. They're just good enough. And then characters that I, you know, really highly build in terms of DPS would be, you know, like my Raiden and, you know, my Noelle. Right, like these are the characters that I'm really going for high CV, you know, a high amount of like actual stats that they benefit from, and that's kind of the main idea with them. And then for support characters like Shalone and Kazuha, guys, that need a certain amount of a stat to actually get their support off, I always make sure to hit those thresholds. So with Shalone right here, it's 3,125, but it will be 3,200 when I attack. And then Kazuha here is above that 1,000 EM amount, so we're gonna get the full benefit of his EM, you know, scaling for his elemental damage buff, right? even a character like my Nahida here, where you want to get above 800 EM so that you can get the scaling to about 1000 EM total for your team. That's what you want to do. So yeah, just in general, guys, that's kind of how I build my characters. It's really gonna depend for you guys, but yeah, let me actually pull up my Akasha here, guys, to show you what it kind of looks like, and I'll show you exactly what my my percents are on Akasha. All right, guys, so we are here on Akasha. This is updated to my latest update in terms of like the characters that I got. But again, guys, my Raiden here at a 1.9%. I put the extra decimal so it's less than 2% because it would just round up to 2%, but 1.982% Raiden hyper carry, guys. And then Noelle's at 3.88%. So again, these are my highest DPS characters that I've, you know, worked towards building. Obviously, they're as high as I can get them to be. So, you know, it's going to be really, really tough with, you know, characters that don't have any Ascension stats. But, you know, Noelle does have, like, a Red Horn, obviously, to help her out. You know, other characters on my account that are good are, like, you know, Hu Tao and Ayato. My Zhongli somehow is actually a very, very good sub-DPS Zhongli. He has overly capped ER right there while on Staff of Homa. Like, this is a pretty good Zhongli, guys. And then obviously my Kazuha is up there as well for the you know, the whole EM, you know, high ER build as well. So I got 145% ER, and then you know, I do have things as well. I guess one last thing to mention as well, guys, which I completely forgot to mention actually, is ER requirements. Make sure to get your ER requirements, guys. This is one character right here, Farina, where I did not go for ER requirements, guys. I just went for stats. Now, you'll see here that this is a DPS Farina, I guess, you know, 71, 275, but very, very low ER. When I'm running this Farina on a team that's not a double Hydro setup with, like, Nouvellette, she is not getting her burst on cooldown, guys. So I have to run Fav Sword at the moment until I get that the free-to-play weapon that I'm going to be building for my Farina. I forget what it's called. It's the one from Fontaine. But right now, at the moment, I do run my Fav Sword on Farina because of the fact that it gives me a lot of ER and it helps get, you know, kind of battery my team. So at the end of the day, when I do check my ratio, I'm 71, 187, which, you know, I do lose that on a lot of crit damage, but it doesn't necessarily matter too much because Farina is a support at the end of the day. I'm trying to support the team, guys. So that's why we go with the ER. So yeah, guys, that pretty much covers how I build my characters in Genshin Impact. Let me know how you guys like to build your characters as well, and if I'm, you know, doing kind of the same idea as you guys, where we do kind of the same builds. Let me know in the comments below, guys. But that's gonna be it for the video. I hope you guys did enjoy, and we'll see you guys on the next one, man. Peace out. Have a great rest of your day, guys. See you later, man.